Good morning, everyone, and welcome to The Broad Perspective here on the Broad Perspective Network. We're glad you're with us today. I'm Vivian Komori.
I'm Katie Curley Nelson.
And in the studio, we are having a conversation amongst friends. We have the Dolezal brothers. Yeah, Josef and Jakub. And Dennis might chime in as well. And today's show is really about a conversation amongst friends, because we are friends and we have important things to say.
At least we think so.
Yeah, exactly. So, one of the things we asked Josef to pick a card out of our, what is the name of this deck? It is the Tao Oracle. And he picked number 22, Grace. Grace, it's very pretty. It's very blue with some purple flowers. The words underneath the word grace are adornment, bring out beauty, elegance, the outer as a reflection of the inner, vanity, charisma, and self-expression. So what does that mean to you, Joe?
Well, I guess as the card indicates, there could be certain aspects if we cover certain aspects of the personality. I don't know, I guess in that context, bringing out the beauty, I think everybody has those dynamics and elements within themselves where they want to express themselves in the most beautiful way possible, whether it's through art or radio show or lectures or dressing themselves up, whatever they may be. So to me, it's just an aspect, a characteristic of who we are as a person, and just trying to refine that as much as possible, because after all, I feel like the entire gamut of life is really a process of self-expression and refinement of self-expression, really, so you can kind of, get out whatever you need to in your heart throughout the course of your life. So I think it's a relevant card. But yeah, that's pretty much what it would mean to me.
Okay. How about you, Katie? What do you think? Grace?
I'm just wondering if it's representative of who we really are or who we want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like we adorn ourselves with certain attire, we create an image for ourselves. Is it really the person who we are inside, or is it the person that we want to believe that we are, or we want other people to believe that we are?
That we want to show.
To show
As
what's
who we
on
are.
the face. Is it really representative of the person inside?
Okay.
So that's my question.
Okay. Well, that's a good question. Do you want to try and answer, or do you just want to talk about Grace?
I think we're just all throwing our opinions out there, and that's where
Yeah.
I think we should keep it at, because I think when you kind of look at the definition what this card of grace is trying to, portray, I think at the end of the day it probably has, a lot to do with what it even has in the definition is just the creation, like that ability as a human to create, and everything you create is that beauty, is that gracefulness. So it's you actually doing something, not so much what I think is like representing you, like if it's your fashion or anything like that that's ego driven, but it's rather your ability to create and use your imagination, and give life to whatever it may be.
I think Grace, when I think about Grace and I see someone who I would assume has grace, I see them as calm, cool, collected, real. They move with grace. They're not really superficial. To me, grace does not include superficiality. Now maybe I'm wrong, and on occasion it does. But to me, grace is that quality. It's very rare. It's very rare.
Can't fake it.
You can't fake it. And it's just that ability to be real and to move forward with integrity and a smoothness. And I like to say the word regal, but I really don't, because I'm not sure that royalty has grace. But there is a regal feeling to it. There's a regal feeling to grace. And we can see what Madhva Padma has to say about grace, if anybody's interested.
Sure.
Of course we are.
Okay, does anybody want to read this?
You're the one with the perfect voice. Go for it.
Oh, yeah,
I
okay.
never learned how to read.
You didn't learn how to read, but yeah, okay. Well, she says, ancient cultures throughout the world revered those who were exceptionally gifted or beautiful as manifestations of God's grace on earth, a link between the divine creator and humankind. Today we call such people stars, but what we really revere is their celebrity and fame rather than their individual qualities. To be a true star, however, is to radiate well-being and an attitude that says, I feel at home with myself and with the world. Everyone in this sense has the potential for stardom. It is our birthright regardless of our physical appearance, social standing, abilities, or the whims of fashion. Despite what the cult of stardom would have us believe, real beauty and the grace that surrounds it is never contrived. It is a luminosity that emanates from within, ephemeral and ageless, a natural glow that arises from living a balanced life. Like a lotus blossom that appears above the muddiest of waters, the lifelong challenge we face is to transform the dark and the difficult into light, fragrance, and ultimately the flower of consciousness. It goes on. We'll have somebody else read some of the rest of it. I thought that was interesting. It brought in those who achieve celebrity as being thought of as having grace, and I've never really thought that. I've never made that connection that celebrity would equal grace.
No.
I guess it's just, again, because we're in a void and a weird time frame in life right now, you know, where people, just because you're on someone's eyes and within their attention span, that's what creates popularity, and that's what creates, like, you know, the fame, as opposed to what, you know, let's say hundreds of years ago, or let's say even 100 years ago, your actual achievements and what you put into life created your fame, you know, whatever you put into it, whether it was Henry Ford or, you know, Thomas Edison or Nikola Tesla or something, you know, even though, you know, his fame was not really anything what it should have been.
Right.
It's just, you know, I like what it's saying, but I think the way it brings it in, and I think it's showing the two sides, that in today's world, like, grace is really lost in what's going on today. Like, grace is really lost in people today. It's really not there. I think everything is pretty much ego-driven, and that little definition you gave shows that we're misinterpreting everything in front of us.
I completely agree. And I think grace is lost. I've been thinking off the top of my head of people I know, and I know a lot of people. Who would I interpret as being full of grace? And that would be tough.
Right.
That would be really tough to come up with people that I think.
Maybe me.
Okay, Joe. Yeah, okay.
He did draw the card.
He did draw the card. Okay, so you. All right, by osmosis, you're.
But anybody else, no.
Yeah, nobody
Right,
else.
just
And nobody in this room. But,
Nobody else but me. Right. Well, I think the card is right, and you know it's mistaken in that sense that you know, celebrity culture has grace, because it doesn't. You know, you when you read the etymology of the term celebrity, or you know, even calling someone a star, and you look into it, it's just like anything. You know, stars influence people, but that doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, it's used in the context of grace or beauty. And also, you know, celebrity, when you define that term, you know, when you break it down in its etymological sense, then the word is like cell. Like a cell propagates and it influences events around it so that it can proliferate an idea. And so, you know, whoever is up top, whatever it is, when they put these ideas into these celebrities that then later propagate an idea, like Britney Spears propagating, you know, be a hoochie to all the young girls, and the guys propagating this to, you know, but that's what it is, because that's how these people learn. You know, everything that you pick up and learn, most people don't learn through books. It's a mistake. You learn through seeing. You know, most communication, they say like 85% of all communication is nonverbal. You know, you just look at it, you pick it up, or it's intuition or whatever it may be. And that's what these quote-unquote celebrities do. It has nothing to do with grace. It's about creating certain ideas and pockets, and then later the people can turn them against them. You know, if you want to, you got this pocket over here, and then you got this faction over here, and then you got this little isolated pocket over here. So it really has nothing to do with grace in any way, shape, or form. Celebrities, you know, in that sense. You
I think
know,
you have to have some sort of appeal factor in order to be a successful celebrity.
well,
And something that is drawn to you. People are saying, oh, you know, I'm drawn to that person for some reason. I want to watch them on the screen, or I want to look at them. There is something about certain celebrities that they have that certain, I don't know, certain something, that factor that people are kind of drawn to, that allows them to make movie after movie and people flock to see them.
Do they actually have it, or is it manufactured and created for them?
and then maintained via the collective consciousness. That's what I think. Yeah.
And that very well could be.
Yeah.
But there is something that we are drawn to. I mean, we all go out to the movies, we all go see these people because, oh, they're in it, I have to go see that.
Nothing
See
else
what
to
I'm
do.
saying?
That too.
I'm bored.
That could be.
No, absolutely, and I think this gets into a really interesting little tad point of what's going on in today's culture and just in today's world. Because the thing about today's world and actual power, like the power where you wield, where you influence the cultures and you do everything, isn't done with like tools. It's not done with weapons. It's not done with the soldiers. You know, it's really fought and won on your attention span.
Mm-hmm.
Because the way they've created everything with technology and everything that's popular, everything that makes money, everything that influences how you breathe, how you walk and everything, is all done by controlling that attention span of yours. So everything, I'm sure, whether it's an app on an iPhone or, you know, the next like social media thing, like whether it's Twitter or anything, it's all has some sort of algorithm that works perfectly with just grabbing your attention span and then just bombarding it, just, you know, just to hold you there for a bit and then go there. And that's the stuff that gives it power. And that's where that world is today. And it's just such a shame because there's that void, because people haven't taken that time to really take time on themselves and to really question things. So it's just like you need constant, quick satisfaction of everything and just things happening all the time.
I'm of the opinion that nobody really makes it to the level they do without a lot of assistance. Without, well, as Katie and I've talked about before, selling their soul. There is some sort of, because there are a lot of people who have talent, there are a lot of people who have appeal that never make it.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of people who have what it takes to be celebrities and to be stars, but they never reach that pinnacle, and nor will they ever. Is it because the powers that be, whomever that is, have decided that they're not worthy, or because they don't have enough money to pay for a nice PR machine to keep them in the forefront?
It's definitely not God.
No, definitely
Even
not.
though they think him a lot all the time,
Yeah.
every time they
Oh,
win an
yeah.
award. But yeah, it confuses me too, Vivian. I just never understand that stuff too, is the people that achieve, that fame, they don't do it on their own. But again, then it gets to that point of, do you really think that fame and celebrity is like the ultimate accomplishment, or are the
Right.
people that actually have that intelligence that are above that are the ones that are actually the directors, the ones that don't get the fame, that actually move all these little puppets that we value so much, but we don't realize that everybody's making all these decisions for them, making it all work so they can influence our decisions and everything we do. So like a big, just like puppet show, all the
It's
way
very
to the top of the
strategic
pyramid.
marketing.
Yeah.
It is very strategic, and how genuine is really any of it?
It is, and it's just like I was saying, it's just to propagate an idea,
Right.
if you want, it's just like anything, and that reminds me of this article that I read that did kind of go a little bit public recently, but it was in regards to basically rap music in black culture and how it was designed to influence basically a prison population, and how it was designed to be like cool to rape and drug deal and go to jail and stuff like this.
Right.
And in the article, the guy said that he went to this big Hollywood party in the early 90s, and they wanted to know, basically it was a syndicate of like judges, investors, and this kind of stuff, like music industry people, and they said, we want to make a decision and alter the course of culture, because this was like when rock music was really big and stuff like that. And they said, we want to create like a degenerate, stupid culture of that proliferates and idolizes prison population, and then so it's like, lo and behold, gangster hip hop. It's like it doesn't even make sense, because you have 80s music, which is like most, and then all of a sudden on TV it's like violence, gunshots. And and it's again, it's like where do these things come from? Where do
Right.
these people get the money for it? Because it's like, you have money, I have money, and no amount of kicking and screaming is going to get you on the radio shows. I know, because we've
Right.
tried it, or on TV shows. There's somebody who decides that based on a program that's already written, and
Right.
this is what we need to do with it. And this is what celebrities really do for us. Whether it's a black guy promoting this, or a certain type of girl, like we said, a teen idol bot promoting this, or a guy promoting this. Then what it does is, because everybody has their own opinions, and I'm gonna polarize to something that you might not, and vice versa. But so if you wanna take a certain culture of people, it's just like you can do anything with them. You basically have to promote something that appeals generally to them, and then you can take that faction and do whatever you want with it. And like they did with black people in hip hop music. Or like they did with white people and like the neo-Nazis and stuff like that. Now you can't say anything about it. Or what they did with Mexicans, and you could all you have to do is just push it a little bit this way, and you can create somebody, because that's why they're called celebrities. If you
Right.
think about it, in biology, a cell propagates. Think about that.
Right.
That's why they're called celebrities. And when they're called stars, why are they called stars? Because stars influence, right? This is
So
the
they're
reason.
using them to influence
They're using them.
everybody
They
else.
just exactly. They just develop, and this whole quote unquote charisma that people say stars have, they don't have. What it is it's the collective consciousness giving that particular focal point, which is the person, an energy, and then
Right.
we intuitively feel that. Oh my God, get starstruck or whatever it is. But that it's totally fabricated, and it's just maintained artificially to serve a purpose. Once that guy gets out of line, he or she gets out of line, and like Dave Chappelle, or even Cat Williams now, or any of these people, they get out of line and they want to quote unquote expose what's really happening. They either kill him or they just make him look crazy.
Right.
Remember like Martin
the
Lawrence.
truth.
Remember Martin Lawrence, who's jumping up and down
Yeah.
Sunset Boulevard in the '90s. They're trying to kill me, and everybody's like, "Oh, he just went batshit crazy." Just ignore him.
Right.
He's
He was
going crazy.
dehydrated.
He was dehydrated, right? And he was like running, screaming for his life.
Right.
And so, that's what happens. I think these people get to a certain level and they see it. It becomes undeniable. It's no longer conspiracy theory, but it's like me and you. It's like, I'm seeing this happen.
Right.
And you have a decision. Do you want to sell your soul, or do you want to do the right thing? Because the industry is there to propagate an idea. You know, it's there to take consciousness, which is energy, and it's there to influence the human race predominantly in a negative way to suppress them via the entertainment factor, which is inherently satanic. And that's fine if that's what you want to do.
So is that what we're doing, is we're basically squeezing the negative energy out of humanity in order to basically harvest it?
Right, and that's what it does, because it's the energy. Think about what even makes America work, or what galvanizes women to look attractive, or this or that. It's this energy, you know, that Hollywood almost exclusively promotes. Look beautiful, have big breasts, or else you're not going to get attention. You're going to die alone and single and depressed. You know, and for guys, have money, because if you don't, girls aren't going to want you, and you're going to die alone and depressed. You know, and that's what they always promote. They promote that on all fronts for every single person. And you know, some people do it through hip hop music, some people do it through country music, some people do it through pop music. But it doesn't matter, because the bottom line is they're putting an idea into your head that then later you basically become their energetic slave, because you're why are you moving? Where are you going all the time? Why are you trying to get...
like Jacob said earlier, that it's now with the social media and everything else and holding your attention in so
much
many
more
different
efficient.
areas,
Much more
efficient.
yeah,
Much
more efficient, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, it's something else me and Joe talked about too. It's just, you know, I always wonder, like, I always used to have these great friends and we used to enjoy life. And you know, I guess if you look at it from you know, a maturity standpoint, it's like you go, oh well, you know, you just don't want to grow up, and you know, you just want to have fun and enjoy life. And I think about all my friends that I have now, like if they're women, as they start approaching 30, they start feeling like, unless they have kids or they're married, they get this like pressure, and it doesn't even make sense. It's like, it's not biological. It's not no biological clock, because I mean, if you actually, you know, did it by experience and just saw how the world works, unless you find that correct partner, and unless your life's set up, why would you want to bring kids into this world? Why would you make it harder for yourself, harder for your mate? And hell, why would you screw up some kids that are just going to absorb that? Because kids are so sensitive to energy. I mean, even when they're in your stomach, they react to how you are. So it's like, why would you want to bring that in? And then it just gets back to this point. It's like, I always go, why don't these people that I used to know want to just go out and have fun? Like, not just go do anything in specific, but it's just like, guys, how it used to be. You go snowboard, you just go out hiking, something stupid happens, you get hurt, who cares? Now it's like, oh man, I don't want to get hurt because of medical.
It's called responsibility.
But that's not even it. Like, that shouldn't be life. Like, you shouldn't be chasing that dollar, and I don't think people ever think about that. It's that chase, that image that's been sold to you, that you should have a goddamn car on lease and you should do this other crap just because that's what you got to do so you look like you're successful. And then, you know, all these people are dying from like cancer and all this crap when they're at 50. So you live for like 13 years of your life. Then when you got into high school, your parents pressure you to get into college, which college doesn't mean shit anyways, because it's like only a tenth of the people get really great jobs. The rest are in debt. They already start early in debt. And then you just get into this whole cycle of like animals where you're just, you know, you're just there to make that paycheck to pay bills, and it's like you're never free anymore. Even if you owned a house, you still got to pay taxes, because if you don't, they take it away from you. So where are you as a free individual? It's like this world is in this void, and you know, it's not even negative. It's none of this stuff is negative. It's not negative energy. I don't believe in that stuff. It's just disappointing. It's like this world gives you this hope. You can be anything you want to be in this world, and then it just takes it all away from you. You know, and it suppresses it, and people don't even realize it. They just do things. They just get married to get married, and then it's just so much of humanity has been getting lost because of what Joe was talking about when you guys are talking about this big monster machine that's making people believe there's a certain way to live life, and that way it's selling isn't even living life. It's just existing, but you never live life. You lose that special thing that made you human, that child essence of you. And you just really lose all happiness. And then, fuck, you're 70 years old. And then you're like all of a sudden turn to some sort of religion, begging and hoping that you're going to go to heaven or going to have a second chance. And that's what's disappointing. Because by then you missed everything, your kids. And then everything else they sold you, where family's the most important thing and everything, doesn't even matter anyways because you didn't spend time with them. And now all of a sudden, because you're on your deathbed or you see the time ticking, you're grasping at everything. And that's a shame, because it doesn't even allow you to breathe.
Wow.
That was heavy duty stuff.
Yeah, we should get more into that monster machine thing when we get back.
We are. We're going to take a break and come back with that. So stay tuned. We'll be back with more of The Broad Perspective in just a moment. Welcome back to The Broad Perspective here on the Broad Perspective Network. I'm Vivian Komori.
And I'm Katie Curley Nelson.
And in the studio today we have the Dolezal brothers, Jakub and Josef. and we are having a chat. We're just solving all world's problems.
No, it is a chat.
It's a chat.
Chat or a rant? I don't know.
It's a
A
chat.
A
hybrid.
chant.
It's a hybrid.
It's a chant.
There you
I like
go. There you go. Well, before we took a break, we were talking about the machine, and Jacob was getting into some really good territory there about the machine and how it creates things and our reaction to it as well. So I'm wondering if you guys would like to pick that back up and extrapolate on that just a little bit more, or expound on it.
It just depends what direction you guys want to go about it. Like, what's its origins, or do you want to go into what do you think it's creating? Is it creating anything?
What's the agenda?
I think the agenda really doesn't matter as long as it keeps, culture and society and people moving in a direction without really questioning,
But do
what
we
the
have to
direction
buy
is.
into it to be a part of the machine? Like, can't you be
No.
unaffected by it?
No, because you don't think that much.
Right.
It's not about that. It doesn't try to give you deep thought. It doesn't make you think that it's giving you an opinion. It doesn't make you think that it's biased or racist or has any agenda. It's just that's where the power lies. And I haven't really gotten into even the in-depth thought in myself how to really really dissect this, but your attention span is power. The ability to just learn how to utilize that attention span and get what you want from it is that power. That's why anything like Instagram and all this stuff is working. Not because it's got quality material and life-changing anything. You got a stupid picture with a funny quote or just anything, and that's what it is. It's just about that minute attention. And that's why even things like, YouTube is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, because you have all these random people just having these small little shows doing something about nothing. And, YouTube's even considering the idea of making, well, not considering, it is like a TV channel type of setup, where you have different genres, how to do it yourself, or comedy, or this and that and this. So they're actually, YouTube's investing in these people, these personalities that make a lot of money, and they don't have to invest a lot, because when you think about it, the big studios, Warner Brothers and stuff, they have to invest millions to develop a project and just money coming out. When you think about how many views a YouTube viewer gets, and we're talking millions and millions, and on those millions, how minute of amount of money they give to the star, to the brains behind it, is nothing. And they sell advertisements, which I guarantee you they make a bundle on. So it's ridiculous, It's not an agenda. There's never an agenda anywhere, because when you overthink things, they never work out. Nothing works out because you made up this formula. It's not like everything's made with numbers like that. That works to understand something, but when you put things into effect, there's a little bit more chaos in the world to really do 1 + 1 = 2.
Well, I think one of the interesting things that Katie mentioned earlier was, the I guess the $1 million question: do we need the system? And what's the end goal or the agenda? Because I think a lot of times, and I had this problem myself, and I think every conspiracy theorist, if you want to call them that, or any new ager who's trying to seek the answers and really crack this whole nut, what's really going on. I think the problem is people take themselves out of the equation, and they look at it like, I'm here and this is the problem, and they're not looking at themselves and how I contribute to this quote-unquote problem, Right. And, the question is, do we need it? Well, you have to first define what is necessity, what is needing, I think, again, it comes to this kind of almost a mystical abstraction that, hey, we're here for a reason, we were incarnated, if you want to believe that or not, but we're here for a reason, and we're dealing with these particular issues for a reason. And I think we all kind of contribute to the problem as well as the solution, because it's like a co-op thing, it's a co-op effort. And as much as we'd like to think that we're individuals, we're actually not. We all kind of have a piece of the truth, and we're all kind of moving through it together. It's like a part of a car. It's like you have thousands of pieces to a car, and not any one part does the work. Everything contributes a specific something to make this vehicle move, and I think that's like the human race in this quote-unquote problem. Because the reality is, as much as most people don't say they don't like the system, most people love the system. And that's like what we were talking about in private prior to this.
Trying to take the system away from them.
Well, exactly. And I used to tell people that too. I said, if you want to be self-sufficient, go out to the desert or the mountains and go there for a month and come back and tell me how it is. I've done it, so I know what it is, and it's not as utopic. Yeah, if you want to call it glamorous or utopic as people make it out to be, because the thing is, you don't really know yourself until you don't have certain things, And once you don't have the luxuries of modern anonymity and this and that, you really start discovering not only how attached you are to the system, but how much it helps you develop and see certain things, because it's like anything, you know. I mean, the media's even, you know, talking negatively about the media's or the music, the pop culture music, or even the internet. You know, it's like a tool. It's like what you do with it. You know, with the hand, you can make love to somebody or you can kill them.
That's
you
exactly
know,
it. That's
it's a
exactly
tool.
it.
You know, and it's the intention. And I think even beyond intention, it's about how do you relate to the big piece of puzzle, in conjunction to the bigger question, how does that make you grow as an individual while participating in a bigger something, you know? And I think that's the bottom line question, because really I don't think anybody knows what's actually happening, because what is culture, you know? Whatever it is today, it's like you don't know what's going on in this pocket or this pocket, and what's going on, you know, what the real intention is. Is it really that sinister? And if it was that sinister, why does God let it happen? Then, you know, I mean, it's just like you get into this really bad rabbit hole where it never really ends, and you just terminate at this ambiguous abstraction that really doesn't even make sense. It's kind of just like this why, you know. And you know, that's what I think. You know, I think that's the mistake. I'll reiterate again. I think that's the mistake most people make, is they take themselves out of the equation. They don't say, well, what are you contributing to this? Because, you know, we're all part of it. It's not like I'm here, you know, there's this void between me, and then there's the rest of the world, and I'm a good person, and everything else is messed up. It's not like that. You're part of it, you know. You're part of it. You're contributing a little bit. You give and take a little bit, contribute to it. And I think when you put yourself in the equation, things start making a lot more sense, you know.
Oh, I agree. I completely agree with that. I do think that we tend to separate ourselves, and the reality is we play a very big role in all of it.
And
all of it.
again, I think the problem is we want to belong something when we want to belong to something when we're actually supposed to be trying to figure out ourselves and working on ourselves. And if you make the self better, everything else will grow from that. I mean, that's everything, you know. That's like, I want to make a family. You're not ready for a family. You don't have a job. You don't think right. You know, you're not even mature enough to take care of yourself. So now you're going to create a family. It's just, I want to be part of the bigger picture, even though you don't. You know, I want to be outside of this. It's just, a lot of it just doesn't make sense. And like Joe was saying, you know, it's about, people are forgetting it's about understanding yourself. Because as much as you read, the more you look into it, whether it's conspiracy theories, or you're looking at the right wing or the left wing, nobody knows everything. Because, I mean, you look at all these people, whether they're health nuts, they'll tell you this is the way you got to live, and, you know, you got to eat healthy and you got to eat natural, and then these people die at 55, 65. Exactly. And then you have people that smoke, that, you know, and they just eat nothing but red meat and drink wine, and they're 106, 110. So even on the basic things of just existing, people don't know what it is. And then when we get into these bigger pictures of how are you supposed to live, you know, how are you supposed to be a part of society?
And who decides that?
Exactly.
Anyway?
It's just, in today's world, with how much has happened with the advancements in technology, medicine, and everything, we're in this void right now. We're just in this void, and we don't know how to make everything work. The people that think they do, that's why we're having these problems and these issues, because they're hurrying something. They're hurrying something instead of taking a step back and taking it all in to see how all of this and themselves work in today's reality and today's universe.
Because I think we are in some sort of transitional phase. And a lot of times that transition, there is that awkward type of void, like you were talking about, as you progress. And I think we are progressing as a being of consciousness, as one whole being, not just as individuals, but as one being. And as we move into that, there's going to be that awkward phase. There's going to be that void as we grow into that higher consciousness and that higher vibration.
I hope it is. I hope it is something like that. I just, you know, it's you want to be positive and everything, but I just think that people really need to be themselves before they can be anything else. And I really think with everything that's being pushed out there, it's confusing people so much. They really believe that their sexuality is what makes them. Their fashion is what makes them. You know, they look at all these things that are an outwardly appearance is what makes and defines them. And the problem is, and just the basis of everything is, and that's because we don't have the fathers and mothers, grandfathers and grandfathers that we need, that have experienced this, to teach us what we're actually supposed to be living up to. There's just this loss because this world is so new right now. And it's just a shame because there's something important to existence. And I don't think it's the creator, because if I was a creator, I wouldn't have wasted my time on making all this dumb crap happen.
Really?
It's a waste of time. I mean, people say, well, you know, there's this big creator, and it's the new thing is you're part of the world experiencing itself. Why would the world need to experience itself if it is already everything? It exists in everything. And why would I waste my time and energy to create if there isn't a purpose for creation? It's just that stuff, because I don't believe energy is wasted. I don't believe it's negative and positive. I do not believe that. So there's a reason it is here. And unfortunately, because we do not understand ourselves, we cannot figure it out.
Because what, Viv?
Know thyself.
There you go.
We're going to take a break. We'll be right back with more of the Broad Perspective and the Dolezal brothers. Welcome back to the Broad Perspective here on the Broad Perspective Network. I'm Vivian Komori.
And I'm Katie Curley Nelson.
And we're continuing our visit with the Dolezal brothers, Jakub and Josef, and we are solving all the world's problems. We were talking about
We're creating more.
the transition of humanity, and I know Katie said I would interpret what your belief system is. The transition is a positive experience.
It's going to be, I
all
don't
the things
necessarily,
you're having.
I think positive and negative are one of the same thing. They're just opposite ends of the same spectrum. So I don't really go to good, bad, negative,
Okay.
positive. I'm
Okay.
saying it's going to be what it's going to be because we created what we create
Okay.
through the energy that
Right.
we expel. But we are going to transition to the next consciousness, whether that be good, bad, or different, whatever that may be. We're going to grow because everything grows and expands and changes and energy changes. So that's where we're going to be going as well, because that's just how the system works. We're within the system. Everything is within the system,
Right.
and we abide by those laws. I don't know that there's anything good or bad within that
Right.
system. I think it's just...
Or what if we upload our consciousness into a robot and live forever? Or our
And
memories
that's-
and thoughts?
That's
Maybe
certainly
that's
know.
already
a
happening.
possibility. It
Exactly.
certainly is what's happening.
That Russian billionaire is really pushing a lot of money on a lot of minds to try to create something like that.
This artificial intelligence. I think that we don't have a clue what's coming down the pike and
Mhm.
coming down quickly. And I think it's going to change the very
Where's the genuine intelligence? That's what I
essence of
wanna-
our being. Well, where is the genuine intelligence? That's
Everything's
a good question.
artificial
See, but,
intelligence.
but that's where it comes to those life tormenting questions. Is the questions like what is intelligence? Because generally we will consider some kind of activity in the mind, electrical impulses that generally are favorable or propitious to daily life, as being intelligent. But is that intelligence? And then consciousness. What is consciousness? Is it life? Is it the ability to see, feel, think, drink, sleep? Like what is it? See, nobody really knows. We all kind of have a
Because if
vague.
the universe is mental and everything is mental, then everything within it is intelligence.
Right.
It doesn't matter if it's art. We consider it artificial because we created it, but isn't that all still within
Right.
the universe? I mean, how is it
It's
artificial?
yeah, and that's why I like, like we've talked about before, not on this interview, but probably in former interviews when we talked about going back to Upanishads and trying to understand certain abstractions, because that's exactly where a lot of the authors of those scriptures will terminate. Is they'll say there's actually no such thing as anything but consciousness. It's just a different vibration. So it's all. And I hate to use that phrase because it's totally abused today.
Right.
Right.
One is all, and everything
I
is one and
know.
stuff
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah, I agree.
But I do think there's some genuinity to it. And now the problem is with this abuse that people use this like love and light and this kind of stuff, because it's like life is too, the thing is with like life, you don't ever really know what's going on. Like we all know we're going to get older one day. We all hope better for ourselves, and so that's why we struggle in life to do the certain works that we do. But see, we really don't know what the future holds until you go through like that particular experience at that age. Because it's like, if 20 years ago you and I met at a bar and I was like, how are you going to be when you're, in the year 2012? You would have no idea. You'd be doing this and you'd be going through certain emotions and experiences because we can't see the future, and that's part of that, that kind of indifferent cycle. And as they've, every great author or sage is always told about, when you talk about God or the absolute, you really can't say anything about it other than it is. It's not
Right.
good, it's not
Yes.
bad. You just terminate
It is.
at something that is an abstraction and you don't really understand it. And that's that whole, the positive and negative, it's just a selling point. Everybody wants
Right.
positive in their life, but nobody wants to work for it. It's like everybody wants to be a millionaire, but they don't want the negative act. And, in any whole, there's always two sides. Everything has two sides. As many good people as there has to be, out of necessity, quote-unquote, bad people, because that's what weighs it out.
reality
Balance.
at this point. Yeah, no, I agree. I think, and especially when we're coming through the thinking mind construct, because that is duality.
Right.
But our thinking heart, which Dennis talks about a lot,
Mhm.
the thinking heart really is not duality. That is a balanced energy. But most
Unification.
people do not know how to connect with that. And I think that there's this thing that bothers me is people in metaphysics and New Age and wherever they want to be from. They have this la Pollyanna attitude. Oh, God is love, and if you only think positive, only positive things are going to come to you, and the world is beautiful.
I have a story for you.
that.
I have a
There's
story
term for
for
that.
you when
Okay.
you're done with that.
Yeah, no, and And I've been accused of being, oh, you're so negative.
Right.
You know, the minute you bring up any type of other alternative thought process, oh, gee, I know God is love, but thank God, why doesn't He love those children in Ethiopia that are starving? You know, there's so much to think about, and I think that a lot of people live in denial, especially Americans that are in this movement. They don't want to face the reality of what really is, what's really going on, and their role in it.
Right. Right.
That's the big thing, that they're playing a part in this, in their denial. So, anyway.
Well, you know, to tangent off of that a little bit, I always thought it's interesting because, like you mentioned, you know, a lot of these quote love and lighters, you know, these New Agers are, you know, in my experience, what I've seen, you know, personally, a lot of them not only delusional, but it's ironic that they are some of the most selfish people I've actually ever met. You know, because they'll, as long as you agree with what they're saying, it's all kosher, it's good. But the second you try to have like an alternative opinion and start even in questioning them, you know, then it becomes like a very negative reaction, which is ironic because just 5 minutes ago they were talking about love and light. And then if you try to pose a question like, well, what do you know, then they start saying, oh, because, you know, these people weren't in their heart chakra or whatever they say. You know, they always say the same thing. And this one guy in particular, I remember I had met him only a few months ago, and we had talked and stuff like this. He was a very intellectually intelligent guy, but, you know, there's something you can kind of defer when somebody is intelligent but not necessarily wise, if that makes sense.
Oh, I
you know?
get it completely.
And so him and I get to talking, and you know, an hour or two had elapsed, and they started, you know, kind of terminating on this like everything is love, you know. I'm starting to get it, and I'm like, well, you know, I don't want to like burst your bubble, but let's think about that. First of all, this is the key thing in any kind of argument or any kind of discussion. You don't have to call it an argument. What are your terms when you say love? What do you mean exactly? Are you talking about having sexual intercourse with somebody? Are you talking about hugging somebody? Are you talking about giving yourself unconditionally to somebody? When you talk about that term, what are you talking about? That's where pretty much you'll get everybody on, because they don't know.
Right.
Because then you can just make a quick
Right.
example. So like, you know, if I take out a gun and I shoot your child in front of you, are you still going to love me? And I'm like, it's a rhetorical question, you don't have to answer because I already know the answer. But the point is, see, none of us really live in this, what you're calling love, because that's not what it is, you know. It's like a terminating point of something, you know. And you know, and I think you're absolutely right, you know, when you say that it's unfortunate that there's a lot of people living in this la-la land that almost always degenerates into like sex orgies, drug abuse. It does. No, it does. In practice. In practice, and I know that sounds...
We have statistics on that.
No, but I've seen it personally with people I know. You know, they come from what they think is a good place, but because they're somewhat intelligent but not wise, you know, they take it as a free-for-all, and it's like, because you have to have the good and the bad, you have to have the liberty and the necessity of things. They get too much off on the liberty, and that snaps them into such a bad position of necessity. They get homeless, addicted to drugs, you know, STDs that they can't recover from, you know, HIV. And these are, you know, this is what you see, people who are free spirits, by the time they're 40 or 50, you know, it's rare that they're like, oh, you still look, you know, like you got life left in you. You know, a lot of these people are homeless or drugged out, you know, whatever. They're just in really bad conditions. And I think, again, it comes to really trying to understand equilibrium rather than good or bad, because it's not, you know, when people say positive, all they're saying is preferential. What's good for me, you know, that's all they're saying when you think about it.
Well, I think you're right, and that does shed a light on a lot of things. Again, it boils down to all of these people that espouse this don't know themselves, and they don't, and it's a self-serving reason. They think that this is what they believe because this is what they want to experience, and that's the one thing that I've noticed in people in science of mind and people that aspire to the secret. It really is about what you can accumulate, what you can do for yourself. There was really nothing in any of those philosophies on how you can help anybody else.
Yet they're constantly trying to help everybody else.
Well, for 1995.
Yeah, there you go.
Not for free. For 1995, and the session will cost you $250 up front, and then $200 every hour after that.
But again, it gets back to that point. We don't have those leaders. We don't have those fathers. We don't have those grandfathers, grandmothers, and mothers. Those good leaders. Because any people that turn to this stuff and do it, I mean, they either abuse themselves and eventually it just goes too far, because then they think there's no limits to this world, even though there are, because you're just going to turn into a toad. Or, you know, it's just...
There's no escaping the machine. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, no matter what angle you can be a Christian, you can be...
There's no absolute.
There's no
absolute. It's live life, understand, experience, then you can fully appreciate. But you can't go out there and preach. Everybody tries to preach to everybody about a lifestyle,
Right.
how to live, what's the way to go, what's the answer.
But if you understand that everything is okay, everything is the way that it should be, that's where you become unaffected by the machine. Not totally, but you can step back enough to where you're not swung by the pendulum. You're not totally under its control.
Absolutely, and that's smart. But what you just said, you have to absolutely understand. And even though you said it, I don't think you fully grasped it.
And even saying it, and even when I totally say that I understand, okay, yeah, it's okay that they have starving children in Africa, although my emotions don't necessarily agree with
But,
what
again,
what I'm trying to
forget
understand.
about them, because it's about you, Katie. It's about you being okay with yourself, your faults, and living life. It's okay you're not a star. It's okay you don't make $1 billion. It's just...
I mean, I'm okay with that, but I have to be okay with all the other things that they're using to control my emotions. Do you see what I'm saying?
The wants, that's how they control it. They make you believe you have certain wants that you don't want. Because you can live, you can work, you can go enjoy food, you can just enjoy your life and experiences with other people that are here to be with you, to be with themselves, and not have to struggle and be stuck trying to make money and forget about creating your life.
Agree.
And that's what it's about. Just people forget how important just living and being in a community is. They always point, like they read these books and they have it all figured out. I'm going to drive a Prius, I'm going to save the world. When, again, it gets back to this thing, the people that think they're the smartest, nicest, kindest people, the love and lighters, are the worst egotistical, angry people at heart. And it is just ego-driven. It's
Not
like,
that we're being judgmental.
no, but again, how many times have you been behind
saying
a
this
Prius?
out of the heart, bro.
Yeah. How many times have you been behind a Prius in a carpool lane, driving 55 miles an hour?
Sounds like personal
Exactly.
struggle.
I can't even begin to count. And the thing about that is these people swear they're doing great for the environment. No, they're saving themselves money, and those batteries that are used inside those cars destroy and pollute more than gasoline.
I'm okay with that too now. I'm done with worrying about that. You want to go save the planet, save the planet. I'm okay with all of
I
it.
think
Do
it's
whatever
about,
you want to do.
that key thing is when people say it comes from the heart. I think the heart, it's about understanding why things are the way they are. It's like, if you want to be rich, you have to work, and that work isn't there as a punishment. It's there, and there comes a level of understanding that you sacrifice and you suffer for a greater good, and I think that's the whole idea about, like what you said, starving children in Africa. If you really understand, just to kind of slightly broaden that perspective, no pun intended, then you see it's like, it's first of all, it could be a totally isolated incident. I'm not saying people in Africa, because if we've never been to Africa, you really don't know what it is. Because if you knew nothing about America, and I took a video camera and I went to downtown LA Skid Row, and I'd be like, look how all the Americans live in the gutters. And it's just like, boom, and then I pump it, everybody in America would be like, holy, look at, these people live like shit in America. They're all poor. Most of them are African Americans, and they're on crack, and they all live in the gutters and stuff like that. But that's nothing. That's like not even a percentage of how it really is. And that's what I was telling you back to, who really knows what's going on, because none of us have been to Africa, really speaking. And it's like, if it was that bad, those people wouldn't live. They couldn't continue producing. That's why I always tell, my friends about India. I'm like, they always say it's poor there, and I'm not saying like maybe their standards of hygiene are maybe a little less than ours, but the bottom line is they have 5 times the amount of people we do. How is that possible if everybody was so deprived there? Think about that. You see, because what you consider maybe clean and hygienical is maybe not what they consider clean and hygienic. Maybe they don't want a car. It's a lot of maintenance. Maybe they don't want a house. Because living in mom's hut is easier. Like, not everybody's ambitions are so cookie cut where it's like, I gotta have a house and a car and clean clothes and a decent job where I make $100,000, because some people just don't care. That's not what they value in society. And so it comes back to the personal responsibility of the individual to understand, not to tell you how to live. I'm not going to tell you how to live, and I'm not going to even shun you for living the way it is, but it's backing out and trying impersonally to understand the situation for what it really is. So I think that's where it comes down to more than anything else, is understanding, just the thing for what it is. And it goes back to that thing, is kind of, you got to accept it for what it is, because if things are the way they're supposed to be, what are you doing in your life, to either have the things you have or you don't. I know from my experience, like, success as such is an easy thing. It really is. It's not complicated. You don't, people always say, I think Jesus and God and this and that kind of stuff. It's easy. Figure out what you want to do, work your ass off. That's it. That's the secret to success.
There you go.
You know, and if people don't want to put in 16 hours a day doing what they do, and you know it comes from their heart and they love to do it, you're not going to become successful because there's a million other people that will do that. That's it. It's not a conspiracy. You know, nobody's holding you down. If you want something in life, bust your ass, and you will get it eventually. You know, you can only mess up so many times, and I've realized that. You know, in the small isolated incidents where I've been, you know, I set my mind to something, you know, I surprised myself. I really did surprise myself. I'm like, wow, you know, you can actually make a lot of money, or you can get to certain positions in life. You can understand things that were beyond your imagination. But, you know, it's this whole idea where it's just like, you know, people don't want to sacrifice themselves or their personality to get to that specific position to understand it. You know, you just say something, I see it and I understand it. No, you don't. Because of what, you know, just like everybody else, like I have certain feelings, desires, wants, and opinions about the world, so do you, so does everybody in the world. You know, it's like none of us are superior to others in that respect, that like, you know, because what I might value is totally irrelevant to somebody, and what else somebody else might value is totally irrelevant to them. Like maybe, you know, I want a Mercedes-Benz AMG, but the other guy, he can't even conceptualize, why would I want something like that? I would say, oh, because, you know, he's a lower human being and he's not as evolved as I am, but see, he could be looking at me exactly the same way, and so it comes back to understanding again. Because, you know, it's a self-development process, and I think it's refining the consciousness so much, not to see particulars in life, but it's rather to see a general picture. Like, don't look at the human race as like black and white, but just like back out of it and look at it like as like a singular body, impersonally. You know, it's hard. Sometimes you can do it when you're not involved, like if you're sleeping and you're kind of like dozing off, or you're going into a different reality anyways, and you can get flashes of light where you see things from an impersonal perspective.
Right.
Okay, we're going to take a break because we have a little bit left, and we'll be back in just a minute with more of The Broad Perspective. Welcome back to The Broad Perspective here on the Broad Perspective Network. This is our final segment of our visit with Josef and Jakub Dolezal, and we will be continuing this discussion on next week's show as well.
Because there's just not enough time.
No, there's not enough time when you get these two guys together. So one of the questions, though, that Jakub asked during the break was, do we have a lot of people, or are a lot of people asking me, do I know the answers, or do we have the answers? Wasn't that what you...
Or to claim to know the answers?
Well, it's more like the people that you talk to and interview and deal with, do they claim to have an answer or an understanding, or do they actually admit to knowing that they don't know? That there's more to the picture?
I would say both, but for the majority of the people that we interview, they've focused on a particular subject, and so they think that they do believe they have the answers for that particular subject.
Because they wrote a book on it.
Exactly.
I always make fun of people. I say I read a book once. That's
yeah.
They're like, how do you know so much stuff? And I'm like, I read a book once.
I read a book.
Once.
Just once.
Yeah. So they profess to know whatever that subject matter might be.
Uh-huh.
Has anybody ever claimed to know it all? Just me and Viv.
Yeah, just Katie.
Mostly Vivian, though.
Mostly.
Yeah. But,
Don't hit me.
Please.
But there have been people that have said, oh, I really don't know. I don't have an answer to that. We have heard that.
Mm-hmm.
And I really respect that. I really respect that when they say, I don't know.
Well, do you think, you know, when you're involved in this movement, do both of you think these people that think alternatively, whatever it may be, whether it's, you know, science, history, conscious thought, do these people think that they understand the world with absolute concrete, just like Republicans or Democrats or scientists do? Do they think they figured it out? Or are they saying, I'm onto something, but it's still anybody's show. There's still much more that I don't think I'll ever understand. Like, you know, do they try to be modest, or is everybody's ego?
There's I think it's a mixture. There are definitely some with egos. I never really felt like we were part of a movement so much as we ourselves were trying to figure it out.
Right.
I
But
think one of the problems is you can't sell I don't know. That's the problem.
That's
Yeah, you
exactly.
can't
Yeah.
And their objective.
You can't say I don't know, buy the book,
Exactly.
because it doesn't
With
sell. You know?
But the people that we interview, that is their objective, to sell more books.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's anybody's
Or
objective. You know,
DVDs or
that's
whatever.
that's the catch-22 in this whole genre or industry, if you want to
Right.
call it that. Is there is really no selfless giving, even though they all
Right.
promote selfless giving.
Right.
That selfless giving comes at a cost. If you don't have the cost, well, go open up a credit card or loan some money from your parents or your friends.
except for the broad perspective.
Except for the broad perspective.
90% free.
And exactly, And you know, and that's one of the catch-22s about this. And I always thought about that, you know, because one of my, you know, just to tangent off again, one of my big things is for years I studied the Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, and you know, eradicating the ego, the personality, is one of the big fortes in, you know.
In that belief system.
In that belief system, because it turns, you know, it's like, well, if all these things existed, like psychic powers or magic powers, levitation, whatever it is that all these people can claim they can do, how come no one's ever seen it, or few people have seen it? And you know, and it is true, because you know, unless you have an objective with somebody, like you want to make money, you want to get famous, or you want to heighten your career, whatever it is, you're not going to integrate with other people, see? And I think that's what nobody really understands, is you kind of need it, but the people who seem to promote, like, its disillusion the most are the most in that respect. You know what I mean?
Right.
You ever notice that? Like, people are like, oh, I'm going to give selflessly and stuff like that,
Right.
and if you disagree with them, all hell's going to break loose.
Right.
Or if you don't pay the fee, you
Right.
can stand outside the door,
I
you
feel
know?
like that's
Right.
with any dogma or religion or, you know, organized religion anyway. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It does
they
seem
want
like
your
there's
energy. It
all
comes
this-
at a cost, because nothing is for free. You can't go into a church or a synagogue or a Muslim temple and disagree with them and they'll still accept you, yet they promote love and light, right? I mean, they do.
That's what I'm saying.
Jesus, you know,
Right.
Jesus embraces you, or Allah embraces you, and if you go in there and, you know, say F this prophet, you'll get kicked out of there so fast you won't even be able to finish your
Heresy.
sentence. But wait a
Right.
second, you just said love and light. So it is this ironic duality where it seems like there's no solution in that particular context other than to, you know, what I would consider isolating yourself from society to really get involved with self-inquiry, but that kind of gets into a tricky situation.
I have found very little that is not self-serving. Very little. Very little.
I came here just to do the interview just so I could have free pizza.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too, and
Yeah.
Pepsi's. I wouldn't have came if there were Pepsi's.
And Mountain Dew.
Right.
And Mountain Dew.
Everybody's self-serving, Bev.
Yeah, I know.
That's all about what it's about.
Yeah, and that's why we have the broad perspective, because we get so much out of it financially.
We do, emotionally.
Right, emotion.
Emotionally, okay.
Everybody sounds so happy and energetic.
I know.
Like that.
It's
On
like-
Matt TV, what was that one show? Hello, welcome back to the program.
Exactly.
No, but Joe, do
Because,
you
right.
think with that ego thing, the whole ego thing, do you think you can actually conquer that ego with conquering it and fighting it, or just accepting it and understanding it? Because you can't ever get
You
rid
have
of it.
to know. You
can't get rid
can't.
of it.
You can't
Yeah.
actually fight anything. I think that's a big mistake, because people always use this word fight or battle, and I think that's a misappropriation of terms, because anytime you fight something and you win, you consume it and you become like that. And I used to tell people that all the time, you know, because of what I do with the Pyramid Center. Occasionally, I'll have some like love and lighters try to ask me questions about why do you think there's evil in the world, and I say, first of all, there is no evil in the world. What you're seeing, you know, is an isolation of a whole, and that's what you're considering evil. You know, there really is no such thing as evil, because okay, we say like vegetarians, you know, killing an innocent cow is a bad thing, and I say, okay, but you know, you're the one who's saying everything is life and consciousness, right? So when that cow consumes that grass, which according to you is life and consciousness, how is that different from a man slaughtering a cow, right?
The
It is,
grass
because
itself, the
the
consciousness
grass
of
itself,
the grass
it wants to grow, it wants to proliferate, it wants
Exactly.
to plant its seed, it wants to expand, it wants to thrive. And so back to that question about can you eradicate the ego, I think you can, but I think it's so difficult, because it really is, like, one of the first things you know, almost any scripture will almost, it will not recommend, it becomes a asceticism, or basically being a hermit, isolating yourself from society, because society, it's like a give and take. You know, you put out and you give. People tell you you're ugly or you're pretty, and that all boosts the ego, because I'm ugly, okay, or I'm pretty, it boosts you up or brings you down. But see, it all basically plays off and builds this whole persona, or something you think you're not, but you're really not that.
Well,
So
those
to
things are
eliminate
be in your
that,
head anyway. So even if you're
It is in
isolated and you're by yourself, those
well,
things are
through
still going on.
self-inquiry, you can start eradicating it slowly and slowly, and it really is losing yourself, you know. And I think it's what people would consider going batshit crazy, except for you have to be a little bit stronger, and you have to say, well, why am I doing this, you know, and kind of make that relation. And I think this gets so abstract and mystical. I think it's out of the question for most people. I really do, because
But again, why couldn't it just mean you lose yourself in society because of all its influences, but you need that time alone to actually understand and find yourself? Because unless you're by yourself, understanding what you're capable of, you can never concentrate on yourself, because you're dealing with every outside organism just influencing you.
I think you would if you were by yourself. I think you would understand yourself.
Exactly, that's what it is, yeah. And I think just the way you were saying it, though, I think it would have gotten, you know, confused, because it almost sounded like the opposite of that, when I actually know you mean that when you're by yourself, you have that time to spend
You need
time,
to know, you
and
need to be
need
by
you
yourself, right.
with no outside influences, nothing that's making you lose yourself.
Well, that's what I mean. When you're by
Yeah.
yourself, you discover yourself, because the thing is, and I say this about people, like, it's amazing if you really stop and you know, try to just think about this deeply just for a few seconds. You really know nothing about yourself. You think you're 40 years old or 50 years old, that you're pretty or you're ugly or you're healthy or you're smart, but that has nothing to do with you. There's something in you, and you know, you can even say like my natal chart, that's like a celestial representative of you, but there's something still deeper inside of you that's really who you are, and that is what interacts with society and then becomes the later you. But the personality isn't you. That's just what's foisted on you, you know.
Exactly.
So it's you know, we can get deeper into this in next week.
We're gonna delve more into
Stay
this
tuned.
next week. So stay tuned. Remember that it's all perspective. Join us same time, same place next week, and broaden yours. And the Dolezal brothers will be with us next week, so we will feel another sense of enlightenment.
Pizza.
And with the
and
answers.
there's always going to be
You had the answer earlier. What was
Yeah.
the answer?
The answer was pizza.
1995.
Oh, yeah, 1995. We'll give you the truth, but it's going to cost $19.95
Yeah,
plus
okay.
shipping and handling.
Yeah, exactly.
Next week.
There you go. So next week. Thanks for listening.
No refunds.